talk about, this is probably the most important overall piece for the parents to be aware of too. Let's talk about everything that goes into a college application. So obviously the SAT is one, right? And as I think most of you know, almost all schools will accept either the SAT or the ACT. Yes, everybody know what the ACT is?
What's the difference between the two?
Great. So SAT is run by a company called Educational Testing Service. ACT is run by a company called ACT. There are two independent private companies. ETS, which runs the SAT, is associated with the College Board. The College Board is a non-profit consortium of colleges and universities across America. But the ACT started in a similar way in the Midwest, and it's two separate, independent, private companies, each of which created a version of a standardized test that tests basic skills. They're competitors. It's Coke and Pepsi, it's Ford and GM, it's two different versions of, but you know, if you're buying a car, you're buying a car. Fundamentally, it's the same thing, it's just a different brand. There are slight differences between the two tests, but for what we're doing right here, it fits in exactly the same place in college admissions, and more than 90% of the colleges nationwide will accept either of the two tests interchangeably. At the end of the day, this is on a scale of up to 36, this is on a scale up to 2400. They all, in admissions offices, have conversion tables, so if they're used to looking at SAT scores and somebody submits an ACT, they can change it into what they know as an SAT score and vice versa. If they're in the Midwest and they're used to using ACT scores and somebody submits an SAT score, they can translate it into an ACT scale. You do not have to take both of them, and I wouldn't recommend taking both of them for exactly the reason that you alluded to, which is you can do, if you want, really do a lot of work. You can do 3 or 4 months of prep and do the best you can on here. And you can also, if you want, do 3 or 4 months of prep to do the best you can on here. There's going to be some overlap, so it won't be completely, 7 months in order to do both tests. Maybe it's only 5, but that's a lot of extra work to essentially do the same thing. And it is like, hey, I'm thirsty, let me go buy a Coke and a Pepsi from the soda machines next to each other. It's a little silly. You don't need to.
Is one suit the personality better than another?
Suit is an interesting word. There are many people, not a majority, but a significant number of people who, if they take both tests, find the ACT to be easier. They feel more comfortable with it, they like it better. The questions on the ACT seem to be asked in a more direct way, especially on the math. Math questions on the ACT look a lot like math questions that you get in math class. The SAT has a very particular way of asking questions, which once you learn it, next week and the week after that, when you come here and do the sessions with me, it's a little like a foreign language, but it's not even a foreign language, it's more a foreign dialect, If you go to England, they still speak English, it's just a little bit different. And if they start asking you about taking the piss or taking the mickey and you're not quite sure what they're talking about, that's just idiomatic. But once you get what those things mean, it's no big deal. You can communicate, you can do fine. Many people read those questions and they sink immediately, and other people look at it and they just look different from math class, and that's intimidating, and so they like the test better. But here's the thing. People who like the test better don't perform better. Fewer than 15% of people who take both tests will get a score that's statistically significantly different. For about 85% of the people who take the test, if you take both tests, you'll get one score, you'll get another score. Whatever you feel about the two tests, when you compare the conversions, it's within 20 or 30 SAT points, the same thing, which is statistically irrelevant. I like the SAT better for a couple of reasons. That thing that I was saying about the particular way that the math is worded. Also, what I was saying about there's no ambiguity in the reading. There's not any ambiguity really in the ACT, but there's a very precise way that the SAT is written that I like. And once you learn how precise, how rigidly they follow their structure, if you can learn their structures, you can really increase your score a lot.